Because you've privileged your whole entire life.
And then throwing everything beneath it away because it doesn't pertain to you. I'm sorry, but you are no. I let you talk. I let you talk. You're gonna let me talk.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry that this is the way it is. It is fucked up. But white people control everything, and that's not fair. And when anybody, any other minority tries to say anything about it or change it, we're complaining or we're ungrateful or all this stuff because we still have this and that.
I said I want to
You said you don't want this to turn into a Latin country.
I did not
because
say
there
that.
will be too many Latinos.
You want to preserve the American culture.
There is no American culture. American culture is
mayonnaise.
You're not accepting the truth.
Why do I have to accept what you think is right?
You need to accept the
Why?
truth, not what I think is right. What's
And let me
actually
tell you one
happening.
other thing. You said white people have been in control of everything. Who is the president of the United States right now?
The election of Barack Obama was said by many to be the final herald of a truly post-racial society. America, they told us, had officially shucked off the last vestiges of its ugly racial past. Quickly, however, it became evident that many were not ready to embrace the change.
Our top political priority over the next 2 years should be to deny President Obama a second term.
The continued propagation of birther conspiracies,
What was such a big deal? Say, show your birth certificate. Grew up in Kenya. Never would have happened.
followed by a vitriolic obstructionism in the Republican-held Congress, which turned so fiercely against the Obama agenda that policy itself was hardly concerning, as they began rejecting positions they'd hitherto advocated themselves.
To reform our immigration system.
I want universal coverage. I want everyone in Massachusetts and in this country to have insurance. The first on the list to get rid of is Obamacare.
Our joint response to climate change is an important one.
To climate change?
Well, about the 97% of scientists is based on one discredited study. Let me tell you what my...
The Obama era, in fact, seemed to have been oxygenating racism. Now, it's all but leapt from shadowy taboo into a state of growing validation.
Their rape is total and complete shutdown.
It is the second time in less than a month that a group has said it would protest the Nation of Islam mosque here in South Dallas.
Against any Sharia law.
Many facilely dismiss racism as the rare and aberrant behavior of an outlier few, as though it were merely an exception, a quirk to an otherwise robust American equality. But a preponderance of social scientific research indicates a different reality, wherein racism embeds itself into the very institutions of the state. One of the most manifest examples is the criminal justice system. An incarceration nation, America has the largest carceral population on the planet, in which minorities and African American men especially comprise a demographically disproportionate share of inmate populations. From its beginning, the American prison system was distinctly racialized, yet it was a small enterprise until the post-Civil War period. The 13th Amendment, remember, abolished slavery and involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime. Legislatures rapidly set out to criminalize behaviors targeting former slaves, harsh contract laws that overpenalized debtors, vagrancy statutes that made it a crime to be unemployed, and other such laws. Convicts were then leased as laborers, often backed to their previous owners to perform their previous work. Today, the strident exploitation of penal labor is a major operating tenet of prison policy in many states, built around the control model first standardized in Texas, where inmate labor powers a vast agribusiness.
Almost all concrete. You're going to be in that box.
Many criminalization practices saw their termination in the civil rights era, but as before, the newly instituted freedoms came coupled with aggressive and targeted criminalization law. The introduction of mandatory minimums and sentencing enhancements for vaguely defined violations like rioting. With civil rights came the war on drugs, whose racialized prosecution and sentencing practices are evident most starkly in the divergent treatment of crack cocaine and powder cocaine. Crack, used in minority inner cities, was met with more severe penalties than its powder form counterpart, found amongst affluent white communities.
Goddamn!
Once again, the demagoguery and sensationalist media help funnel racial politics through the institution of criminal justice. And currently, a similar drug plight is rampaging communities. The ongoing heroin and opioid epidemics have compelled some lawmakers to declare states of emergency.
So the first recommendation we say to the president is you must declare a national emergency, a public health emergency.
Rather than combating the emergency with punitive mandatory minimums, red and blue states alike are calling for sympathy and public resources, like increasing access to Naxalin, an addiction recovery substance.
In coming days, I expect
Go off.
Go on. But you are so privileged, like even the okay, let's put this on the smaller spectrum. You're saying
have to scream.
yes, because I'm mad.